Welcome to Corruption in America, Texas Public Corruption Series, December 2017. I'm your host, Katerina Kapliuk. Happy holidays! A happy, loving mother suddenly commits suicide, shocking her family and loved ones. The circumstances are suspicious, and her children know that their mother would never kill herself. Her husband, who had already stolen money from his first wife before divorcing her, then produced a will her children knew nothing about and secretly has it probated without the knowledge of her children, writing them out of inheritance and naming him her sole heir so that he couldn't open her land up for oil exploration and make a fortune. It has been 7 years since Janice Wilhelm's death and forget will. This year, a NLF-worthy handoff was executed under the brilliant coaching of attorney Charlie Johnson. Jan's will, you see, was a forgery so blatant that an elementary student could recognize it, and even thought a handwriting analysis was completed by a well-known professional. It held no sway with the Leon County authorities, who have thus far refused to look into the matter or open a case. They sometimes claim they ran it by a grand jury, but in point of fact, they did not. We'll come back to this point later. In the meantime, Jane's children filed a lawsuit over the forget will. Jane's husband, Gerald, is believed by her children to have been behind her death and the person who fabricated the forget will. He is also suspected of being a triggerman in several area suicides in which people shot themselves in the torso area, or one who managed to shoot themselves in the back of the head. He faced no prosecution or investigation, and rather lived on oil royalties, driving around town in a brand new Toyota, and wearing fancy new clothes, which ironically included a new white Stetson. His ill-gotten gains included heirlooms from Jane's family, which he refused to give back to her children. Some pieces had been in the family for over 100 years. Rather than give them to her family, he gave most of them away. As private investigation founded by Jane's children revealed multiple false statements, missing evidence, evidence that had been destroyed, and more than a few blatant crimes that no one had really bothered to cover up, the authorities became more hostile toward them. In the meantime, NBC sent a news crew from Dallas to Centerville, where the film Gerald House and called upon him. Surprisingly, he agreed to speak with them on the condition they would not record any audio, for fear of a civil case involving a forget will. Yes, he actually said that. Have a look at the NBC segment, it's not that long. CBS sent a pair of journalists next without a camera, who began asking questions and doing some digging. What happened next was Gerald was suddenly found dead. Less than 48 hours later, Christina Bain, through her attorney Charlie Johnson, filed an application to probate Gerald's will, for which she was the executor and joint heir. The estate was left to her and another woman named Deirdre Kyle. She is of interest to our story because Deirdre signed the forget will that Gerald probated on Janice. She also testified during the probate that she was familiar with Jane's handwriting and had witnessed her sign the document. Since the will was a forgery, that is impossible. More interesting still is the content of a deposition taken later, wherein Mrs. Kiley stated that she didn't know Jane, had never met Jane, and was in no way familiar with her handwriting, meaning she could never have seen her sign anything. But not even perjury is of interest to the Lyon County authorities. While Gerald's will was being probated, Jane's family finally received help from some decent, honest people, who informed them about the will while it was being proceeded. The attorney for her children contacted Charlie Johnson, who feigned surprise that a case regarding Jane's forget will even exist. In fact, Christine Bain had been approached by a Warner Brothers journalist out for California, whom she had nearly run over with her car after trying to dodge questions about the case. As she was leaving, she screamed that she was going to call her attorney. It is a safe assumption that Charlie Johnson was, in fact, aware that the case existed. Ever the lawyer, Johnson asked the attorney for Jane's children to allow him to speak to his client to try to avoid a full-blown lawsuit. Instead, he pressed the probate and county Judge Ryder signed off on it, stating that saw no reason not to, despite the fact that the lawsuit regarding Jane's will, and thus entangling Gerald's estate, was still current. The handoff was completed when Kristen managed to apply, and then legally be granted the mineral rights left to Gerald in Madison County, where no lawsuit was on file. The opposing team, Jane's children and their attorney, called a technical foil based upon a older ruling that has resulted in Texas State Bar having a summary disposition panel called in Dallas to investigate Charlie Johnson. These panels' ruling will be disclosed at a later date. A great deal of time and money has been spent by Jane's children to investigate this case. Now, we will move forward to examine Kristen Bain and her current husband Martin Boren, two beneficiaries of all the covers up. Both Bain and Boren have lengthy criminal histories, including long-term illegal drug use. Paradoxically, Baines works at a bank, even with her criminal record and no drug use. Boren has a lengthy list of assault offenses, including violation of a protective order, assault, and unlawful carrying of a weapon. Kristen herself has been charged with unlawful carrying of a weapon twice in Dallas. At this point, one has to wonder if these two are being set up or if they are the masterminds, orchestrating murder, forgery, and corruption for their own enrichment, destroying lives and raking families in their pursuit of selfish gain. Only time will tell.